Bane. In 1993's Nightfall, DC needed a new threat, someone with brains, brawn, and no emotional baggage. So writers Chuck Dixon, Doug Moench, and artist Graham Nolan built Bane from scratch. Raised in the Peña Duro prison system, trained in isolation, hardened by the experimental drug venom, he was more than muscle, he was strategy in a tank top. The entire Nightfall arc revolved around him. He studied Bruce Wayne, broke into Arkham Asylum to flood Gotham with chaos, then waited. After weeks of psychological warfare, he finally confronted Batman. Worn out, drained, and snapped his spine across his knee. Mission complete. That should have been the end. Bane was supposed to disappear after serving his purpose, but something shifted. Readers connected. They saw a villain who wasn't just brutal, he was meticulous, controlled, cold-blooded in the smartest way. DC couldn't just shelve him. So Bane came back, again and again, in Legacy, in Secret 6, in Gotham Underground. He got more depth, more layers, and then came 2012, The Dark Knight Rises. Tom Hardy turned Bane into a household name. Mask, voice, coat, suddenly he was front and center. The irony? Bane was built as a plot device. Now he's in Batman's top-tier rogue gallery, sitting next to Joker, Ra's al Ghul, and Two-Face. Hawkman. Before the 1985 Crisis on Infinite Earths, Hawkman was already complicated. There were two versions, Carter Hall, the reincarnated Egyptian prince, and Qatar Hol, the space cop from Thanagar. DC kept both around and hoped readers would just go with it. After the Crisis rebooted the universe, things got messy fast. Editors tried to clean up the timeline, and that meant choosing one Hawkman. They leaned into the Thanagarian version, launching Hawkworld in 1989, but the book took place in the present day, not the past, which meant every previous Hawkman appearance was suddenly out of sync. Who had been fighting alongside the Justice League all those years? No one could answer it clearly. Writers tried to patch it, then retcon it, then layer the reincarnation angle on top of the alien cop angle. Each fix made things worse. The timeline collapsed under its own weight. By the mid-1990s, Hawkman was part bird spirit, part time anomaly, part editorial headache. Eventually, DC just gave up. In 1996, they literally wrote him out of existence, absorbed into a hawk god named Hawk Avatar, and erased from continuity. Years later, Jeff Johns stepped in with JSA and slowly rebuilt Hawkman from the ground up. He kept the reincarnation angle and made it central again, stripping away the alien stuff. That version stuck around and gave the character some long-overdue consistency. Even now, Hawkman carries a reputation. When continuity goes sideways, fans call it a Hawkman situation. Jason Todd. Jason Todd was never supposed to be this complicated. When he first showed up in 1983, he was just another acrobat orphan, a carbon copy of Dick Grayson, right down to the circus background. DC literally gave him the same origin and Robin costume. Fans didn't mind at first, until Crisis on Infinite Earths reset everything. Post-Crisis, DC rewrote Jason from scratch. This time, he was street smart, impulsive, and found stealing tires off the Batmobile. He had an edge, too much of one, according to readers. His new personality didn't land. By 1988, DC was stuck with a Robin that fans didn't like, and they made a bold move. In Batman, A Death in the Family, DC let the audience decide Jason's fate. A 900-number voting system was set up. Call one number to let him live, the other to let him die. Over 10,000 people voted. The result? A difference of just 72 votes. Jason was killed off by the Joker in a warehouse explosion. It was brutal. Headlines followed. Critics called it cold. DC stood by it. And for nearly 2 decades, Jason Todd stayed dead, one of the few comic deaths that stuck. Then Hush happened. In 2003, fans were teased with a Jason comeback. In 2005's Under the Hood, it became real. Jason was resurrected, first via Superboy-Prime's continuity punch, later clarified as a Lazarus Pit revival, and returned as the Red Hood, a violent anti-hero who challenged Batman's moral code. Now he's one of the most popular Robins in the DC lineup. Superboy-Prime. Superboy-Prime started out as a tribute. A sweet, wide-eyed teenager from Earth Prime introduced in DC Comics presents number 87, 1985. His world had no superheroes except the ones in comic books, until one day he got powers, joined the battle in Crisis on Infinite Earths, and disappeared into limbo. That should have been it. A one-time legacy cameo, but in 2005, DC pulled him out of retirement and turned him into a wrecking ball. Infinite Crisis reintroduced him as a bitter exile, trapped in a paradise dimension, watching the modern DC universe spiral into cynicism. He wasn't just disappointed, he was furious. And when he returned, he came with one of the weirdest editorial devices in comic history. He could punch the walls of reality and retcon continuity, literally. That's how DC explained major changes, like Jason Todd's resurrection or timeline inconsistencies. Superboy-Prime threw tantrums so powerful they rewrote canon. The more unhinged he got, the more destructive he became. He killed other heroes, he wiped out entire Earths. He blamed everyone else while demanding to fix the universe. Writers leaned into the meta. Superboy-Prime started ranting like toxic fans on message boards. He hated reboots, despised legacy characters, and thought he deserved to be the real Superman. His dialogue sounded like angry comment sections. By design, DC had turned a symbol of hope into a parody of their harshest critics. Calendar Man. Julian Day was supposed to be forgettable. His whole gimmick? Committing crimes based on the calendar. Halloween heists, Valentine's Day robberies, Christmas-themed capers, all tied to costumes that would make Spirit Halloween roll their eyes. He debuted in Detective Comics number 259 back in 1958 and was treated like comic relief. Batman punched him, tossed him in Arkham, rinse and repeat. Then the Long Halloween dropped in 1996, and everything changed. Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale took the goofy, date-obsessed weirdo and reimagined him as a locked-up, soft-spoken mastermind. A Hannibal Lecter type, more valuable in a cell than on the street. Gone were the costumes. Now he was pale, shaven-headed, and unsettling. He whispered cryptic clues about the holiday killer while toying with Batman's mind. It worked so well that fans started asking why he'd ever been a joke in the first place. Writers ran with the momentum. Later stories leaned harder into the psychological angle. He became obsessed with the passage of time. Some versions even hinted at supernatural aging a year every day or remembering past lives by date. The camp was gone. The mood shifted to dread. And through all of it, DC never planned for any of this. Calendar Man was a one-note punchline for decades. His redesign happened because a creative team wanted to fill a narrative gap and needed someone just obscure enough to reshape. He ended up with an eerie new identity that outlived the book that reinvented him. Now he floats in and out of Gotham stories as a background threat, always watching the clock, always waiting for the next date to strike. Not quite an A-lister, not quite a joke, just a bad idea that turned into something unsettlingly effective. Rorchack. He was designed to make readers uncomfortable. Alan Moore built him as a dark mirror of the question, a man so rigid in his beliefs that he saw compromise as weakness. Dirty trench coat, ink blot mask, diary full of paranoia, Rorschach was the moral absolutist in a world falling apart. In Watchmen, 1986, he was the most dangerous kind of true believer. No superpowers, no filter, just brutal force and unwavering conviction. He lived in filth, smelled like beans and sweat, and solved problems with broken fingers. Moore's writing made him intense. Dave Gibbons' art made him unsettling, and the ending left no doubt. This was not someone to idolize, but something strange happened. Readers connected, not with his hygiene or his methods, but with his unshakable worldview. He told the truth. He stood his ground. He refused to play along. Fans saw him as a tragic warrior of justice, misunderstood by the world around him. The mask became iconic. The journal quotes turned into posters, and Moore, famously, hated it. He said in interviews that Rorschach was meant to be disturbing, a warning, not a symbol. Seeing him turned into a cultural anti-hero frustrated Moore so much that he distanced himself from later DC work entirely. Still, DC kept using him. They gave him a legacy in Doomsday Clock. They launched a Rorschach solo series in 2020. They even tried to explore the impact of his mask on future generations. The more DC pushed back against the misreading, the more fans debated what Rorschach really stood for. He started as a satire of moral extremism and ended up as one of the most argued about characters in comic history. Impulse. In 1994, the Flash writer Mark Waid needed a new character, fast. Editorial wanted a teen sidekick, and Waid didn't want to rehash Wally West. So he created Bart, a kid from the 30th century with hyper-accelerated metabolism, zero patience, and the attention span of a goldfish on caffeine. His debut came in The Flash number 91, and by issue number 92, Impulse was born. Unlike other legacy speedsters, Bart didn't grow into the role. He crash-landed into it. Raised in a virtual simulation, aged rapidly, and completely unfamiliar with real-world consequences, he was chaos in red and yellow. Artists gave him bug-eyed expressions. Writers leaned into the absurdity, and fans, they loved it. DC gave him a solo series in 1995, rare for a new character. The book leaned hard into slapstick energy, bizarre villains, and Bart's non-stop commentary. He became a fixture in Young Justice and a standout among DC's younger heroes. Then the tone shifted. In 2006, DC made Bart the new Flash after Wally West disappeared during Infinite Crisis. The redesign was serious, the tone was grim, the sales dropped, the book was canceled after just 13 issues, and by Flash, the fastest man. Alive number 13, Bart was dead. It didn't last. Fans demanded his return and eventually DC revived him. But the message was clear, Bart Allen wasn't meant to be a mainline Flash. His personality wasn't built for that weight. Impulse worked because he was unpredictable, a speedster who didn't think ahead and barely looked back. He was a glitch in the legacy chain who stuck around because chaos had never moved so fast. Kite Man. He was created to be disposable. He debuted in Batman number 133, 1960, introduced as Charles Chuck Brown, a villain who committed kite-themed crimes and flew around Gotham with a custom glider. That was the whole pitch. No tragic origin, no dark agenda, just kites. Writers didn't take him seriously, and readers didn't either. For decades, he floated in the background, occasionally showing up just to get knocked out. He became shorthand for worst villain ever. Even the Lego Batman movie used him as a joke character in 2017. Kite Man. Hell yeah, you gotta laugh. Then Tom King got involved. In his Batman run, 2016 to 2018, King took the catchphrase and gave it weight. Kite Man was still goofy. But now he had a story. His son was caught in a war between the Joker and the Riddler. He died because of it, and Chuck, broken and desperate, leaned into the identity that had once been a joke. It hit fans hard. A character designed as filler was suddenly tragic. Kite Man wasn't scary, he wasn't powerful, he just kept going. And somehow that persistence turned him into a cult favorite. Cosplayers embraced him, memes exploded, DC doubled down. The Harley Quinn animated series gave him a full character arc, with romance, heartbreak, and punchlines that actually landed. Ravager. She first appeared in Deathstroke the Terminator number 15, 1992, as Slade Wilson's illegitimate daughter, the kind of reveal meant to stir up family drama, then disappear when the arc wrapped. Writers gave her the codename Ravager, inherited from Slade's previous sidekick who died in action. Her early appearances were rough. She bounced between storylines and creative teams, sometimes an assassin, sometimes a victim. No one quite knew what to do with her. Then came Teen Titans 2003 by Jeff Johns. That's where everything changed. Johns gave her depth, rage, loyalty issues, a power struggle with Slade. She was now a teenager trying to define herself outside her father's shadow. She injected chaos into the Titans lineup, clashed with Robin, and eventually carved out her own space on the team. The eye patch became iconic. The attitude stuck. And DC suddenly had a breakout character that started outperforming her original purpose. Rose kept evolving. She joined major crossover events, took leading roles in team books, and even got tangled in Bat family stories. Writers leaned into her emotional damage, but also gave her agency, something her early appearances never offered. Ambush Bug. He was never supposed to stick. He debuted in DC Comics Presents number 52, 1982, as a one-shot Superman villain named Erwin Schwab, a weirdo in green tights who teleported using robot bugs and shouted nonsense. That was it. He was created by artist Keith Giffen to be annoying, and he nailed it. But Giffen saw potential in the absurdity. He brought Ambush Bug back, not as a villain, but as a comic book wildcard who knew he was in a comic. By 1985, DC gave him a solo miniseries, and that's where things got completely unhinged. Ambush Bug broke the fourth wall. He interrupted his own narration, he mocked editors, he replaced letters columns with snarky rants, he even fought characters that DC had forgotten existed, and pointed it out while doing it. He became a walking glitch in DC continuity, calling out recycled plotlines, editorial rewrites, and lazy tropes. At one point, he accused the publisher of trying to kill him off through corporate neglect. Fans didn't know what to make of him, but they kept reading. Over time, Ambush Bug evolved into a self-aware parody of the superhero genre itself. Long before Deadpool made it mainstream, Ambush Bug was calling writers by name and tearing holes in DC's own books. Giffen even made him host DC's Who's Who in 2006, turning a catalog of characters into a gag-filled roast. He's been killed, erased, and sidelined dozens of times, and always returns like a comic book cockroach. And that's it. So now that you've seen DC's biggest character accidents turn into legends, which mistake do you think DC still hasn't realized is secretly iconic and could explode next? Comment down below as you leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos like this one.